Welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to make our own PortScanner with the help of our escapee module. So before that, let me just open my terminal in the Kali Linux and show you about the NetDiscover. So if I say NetDiscover is the program, and let me just give the interface, which is obviously my interface WLAN 0, which is wireless network. If I hit enter, it is going to scan us and it is going to give us all of the IP addresses and MAC addresses of that devices that is connected to our network. So you can say these are the three devices that is connected, one being a router, which is obviously the gateway over here, and next one is the devices, that is the hardware that is connected to this network. So we are just making this program with the help of Python in our PyCharm module. So before that, just remember what we are just going to do. So first of all, you can see that we have this machine. So just remember this is our machine, and maybe this is the client. So you can see this is a mobile and this is the PC, that are the clients over here, and this is the server obviously, and the internet, maybe we have the router here, and this is maybe router, and this has its own IP and MAC address, because we have said here that every devices has its unique MAC address. So if I just go over here and show you that this devices being the router has its own MAC address, and this has its own, so every devices has its own MAC addresses which is unique from each other. So they are unique because every packet has to send to some of the devices so as to recognize that device. So if I say that I want to distinguish this device from this device, then it is not from IP address, this is done from the MAC address. So whenever the packet is sent from the router, then that time it is helped by these MAC addresses. So packet is sent in this MAC addresses rather than just showing the IP. That means MAC address is very important information together, because the packet is sent with the MAC addresses. So there is two information that is related to the packet. So let me say this is the packet that is sent, then there will be the header and some of the information over here. So there will be source MAC address, that is the MAC address of the source which is going to send that packet, and another is a destination MAC address which is going to receive this packet. So this too is a very important information. So first of all, there is one protocol which is going to be our ARP protocol, which stands for Address Resolution Protocol. So just remember that we have the ARP protocol to deal with in this lecture. So before that, let me show you how this packet routing works in the internet. So first of all, what happens is this is the client, and if this client wants the information of other client that is connected in the internet, and if this wants to get the information of the client or the MAC address of the client, so let me say it is done by first the ARP request. So this client, being this client which is connected to the same internet that other client are connected, this will first give the ARP request. So it will just say ARP request sent to the router saying who has this IP address. So first of all, it will just send this IP address that is unique. Maybe this client will just give the ARP request in the form of the IP saying that who has this IP address, and this is sent over all of the client that is connected in the internet through the broadcast MAC address. So after that, if it broadcasts all of these ARP requests, then the client will have its own IP address. So this has own IP address and this client has its own IP address. So this IP address, or basically this request which is sent from this client, will be ignored by those client who doesn't have this IP address. So if this says something like, okay, who has this IP address 10.2.1.maybe4, and if this is the IP address of this client, which is the computer, but not of this mobile, that means this message which is ARP request will be ignored by this client, and this client will just get the ARP response saying that I am this client which have this IP address back to this broadcast manager. and this will see that okay, this client has the MAC address and this is the address resolution protocol. And the next thing is very important information over here is a MAC address, and MAC address is very important because this is not obviously the MAC that we are going to use, which is obviously the computer. So MAC address is a media access control address. So it is basically the hardware identification number that is uniquely identifying the each devices on the network. So I have shown you in our Kali Linux over here that each of these devices will have the unique MAC address, which is to identify between these devices. So if you send any packet from these devices, from one devices to another, this MAC address is going to be unique, so that that packet can be traced, or that packet will be identified, or the packet will be delivered to the right devices. So this is the important information, MAC address. So we'll just code this NetDiscover with the help of PyCharm now. So before that, let me just make you real quick what we are going to do. So first of all, we have to make the ARP request, and then we have to make a broadcaster. So in the broadcaster, what happens is we'll just send this ARP request saying that okay, you need to send that ARP request to the broadcast MAC address, which will just determine which clients are connected to network, and we'll just get this information of the client that are connected to the network from this PortScanner module. So in this lecture, we are going to make a escapee module. So let's get our PyCharm ready and let's see how we can just make our escapee module on PortScanner. So first of all, let me just delete all of this. Let's go back to our PyCharm. So here, the first thing what you need to do is you have to just go to your project, create a new Python file. I have already created, named is main.py. So next thing, if you see here, we want to go to the settings, and under this your project keylog, which is the name of your project, go to the project interpreter and just add the escapee module over here. So I'll just say escapee and install that escapee module, and I have already done over here. You can see right here we have the version of the escapee over here. If I press OK, now we can get that escapee module to work for us. So first of all, I'll just import that escapee module all. So all is basically to implement every module of the escapee. That means we can use everything that is declared inside that escapee module over here, and I want to alias it with escapee. So every time when I want to use that escapee module, I don't need to write escapee.all. Instead, I can just refer it with escapee. So now next thing I want to do is I want to make a function that is going to be the scanner function. I'll just pass here IP address that is to be scanned. So this is our function. So next thing is to use this escapee, and I'll say rping. So this is the method that is going to spoof for us. So next thing what you need to do is we need to just make this scanner work with the IP address. So if we just go to the command prompt over here, and if I search for our IP, then it is connected over here. So the IP address is 192.168.1. So if I just go here and I'll just pass here 192.168.1. So first subnet in this IP is going to be the gateway. So first of all, we want to have the gateway, and to include every subnet from 1, which is obviously this digit, to 254, we need to just put this #24. That is to include every subnet on this network, or basically on this IP address. So just pass this /24 to include every subnet of this IP address. So next thing what you need to do is simply go to the run this main, and give it a time to run, and it has begun the emission. Let's see how this works. So it has received the 3 packets and got 3 answers. So these answers are responses, and it has shown that remaining 253 packets were unanswered. That means we just got 3 answers. That means 3 devices are connected to this network. So you can see we got the same, that is MAC address and IP address that we just got from the Kali Linux over here, which was the NetDiscover. So what we just did in this lecture was we made our escapee module to work for the scanner. We didn't do anything good over here because it was just a one-line code. We'll see under the hood how this works in the upcoming lecture, but for now what we just did was we just passed the IP address or every subnet of that IP address that is connected over here, and we just get this RPing to work for us. So what we just did over here, so let me show you real quick. So first of all, we just did something like this was the client. So basically this is us, and we want to give the ARP request. So it is giving us the ARP request. So it is just giving us the ARP request of maybe 10. So it has the IP address over here. So let me go real quick. So if I show you here, then this is your IP address, that is 192.168. So it is just showing us over there. So if I just go back, and it is just giving a ARP request with that IP, which is 192.168, and that is 1, which is obviously the gateway, the first IP. And after that it is just giving this everything as a ARP request to just broadcast manager or broadcast. So after that it is giving this to the broadcast MAC address, and it is just referring to every client. That means this every client will be included inside this IP address. So they will also give the ARP response back to the devices. That means it will just capture the MAC addresses of each of these devices, which is just done in this lecture, which is right over here. So if you see in the PyCharm, you will see that we just captured every MAC address and got the IP. Obviously IP is inside this subnet. So after that we just get every MAC addresses, which is just sending us the ARP responses. So you can see we got 3 answers. So this is very important, just remember here we got 3 answers. So these are the responses and other are unanswered. So there is 253 packet that is unanswered. So that is very important. We just received 3 packets. That means we have just 3 connected devices to the network. So now in the next lecture we'll make our own scanner with the help of the algorithm that we just learned here. So instead of just using this ARPing, we can see how broadcast work, how to just make the ARP request, how to just combine those broadcast and the ARP request and send to the network, so that they will just give us the answer responses back to us, so that we can just modify it and make our complete again this NetDiscover, but in more robust way. So see you in the next one.